Welcome to Unmasking Humanity 21 Questions with Joshua T. Berglan. I'm Joshua, your host, and I'm beyond grateful you're joining us today. Whether you're a longtime listener or tuning in for the first time, thank you for being here. If this is your first time with us, here's the scoop. I'm the creator of the World's Mayor Experience and the Bridge to Media Empowerment Centers, which you can check out at joshuatberglan.com. Our mission is to establish over 500 centers in underserved communities across the globe, empowering youth and marginalized groups with the tools they need to thrive in the fourth and fifth industrial revolutions. It's not just about media. It's about economic development, lifting up the disadvantaged to claim their place in this evolving world. I'm also the author of Media Company in a Box and The Bridge to Media Empowerment, both serving as roadmaps for aspiring media entrepreneurs. And then there's The Devil Inside Me, my international best-selling memoir that's now an award-winning film, recognized in 8 film festivals worldwide. Through my books, film, and this show, my goal is to unmask humanity. The questions I ask are designed to peel back layers, revealing the heart and soul of my guest. This isn't about trick questions or gotcha moments. It's about creating a space for authentic, meaningful conversations that uncover the why behind what people do. And today's episode is something special. Our guest just returned from Davos 2025, yes, that Davos, where the global theme was intelligence and education. He's someone who sits at the crossroads of creativity, law, and education, and his work continually inspires me. Gareth is the founder of True Blue Productions. Check them out at trueblue.tv, and runs an IP law practice at ipassist.com.au, where he's also published a highly regarded book on intellectual property. His portfolio is vast, from groundbreaking digital literacy projects with First Nations students in Alice Springs, Australia, to releasing the world's first AR comic book designed to teach kids about World War II history, lest we forget. But that's not all. Gareth's currently working on a feature film about the bombing of Darwin, telling stories of our shared World War II heritage with the US and Singapore. He's also gearing up for a major release at Singapore Comic-Con to celebrate the 60th anniversary of Singapore's independence, highlighting the enduring friendship between Singapore and the USA. Today, we'll be exploring some powerful themes: creation in the age of artificial intelligence, digital literacy in the AI era, and how education is evolving in a world where intelligence itself has become the focal point of global conversations. We'll also touch on Gareth's incredible journey from teaching the world's oldest storytelling culture, the newest technologies, to navigating the complexities of intellectual property in the digital age. Gareth, it's an honor to have you here today. Let's dive in. How you doing, man?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Josh. Wow, what an intro. You nailed it.
Well, I'm very, very honored to have you here. And before we get into the 21 questions, I would love to know, what are you grateful for today and why?
Josh, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to share stories that empower, opportunities for others. I do that in my legal practice. I do that in my creative work, as you've very well articulated this evening. And I'm also just entirely grateful that I get to do that through education. We share a mutual passion there. And very, very, very lucky to be able to do that around the world from our humble home here in Down Under.
Well, I'm honored to have you here. Are you ready for your 21 questions?
Ready when you are, Josh. Let's do it.
All right, let's go. Question 1. In Finding Freedom, you discuss navigating the noise of modern life. How has the rise of AI amplified that noise, and how do you personally stay grounded in this rapidly evolving tech landscape?
This is a great question, Josh. Listen, Finding Freedom was a book that took me 15 years to write, and it's really about that interpersonal journey. And I believe that it's that journey is more important than ever in an age of AI. where machines can do almost anything. We need to be everything to ourselves and the people around us. We need to find our freedom, our identity, in order to find our way in what the changes that we're going to see in the next 5, let alone 50 years.
I love that answer. Question 2. You've described your journey from sailor to captain. What's been the most challenging part of taking control of your own path, and what advice would you give to others looking to start their own course?
Yeah, that journey from sailor to captain. Look, I'm a lover of stories, and in terms of business, I think there's many people, perhaps potentially even some of your listeners, who would like to start a business, maybe even start a side hustle in order to find their freedom. And that journey I often describe as being from sailor to captain, because there's many sailors in the world, and there always was, but there's very few captains, because essentially, in order to be a captain, you needed to prove yourself. And I think the first question that any would-be captain needs to ask themselves is, what kind of boat do you wish to sail? For instance, you can have a very sleek vessel or wish to build and captain one that can sail around on a digital nomad visa around the world. You don't have to own an entire fleet or franchise. At the end of the day, that journey is actually about you staying at the head of your table, to be at the helm and bridge of your ideas, to be a true captain of your own ideas. And that's what I champion in my book, Ideology 2.0, how you can navigate that pathway in this new industrial revolution with AI is going to be omnipresent.
Love it. Such a good answer. Question 3. You talk about ego as a mask that hides our true selves. How can creators use this process of developing ideas to peel back that mask and connect with their authentic identity?
Well, I'm a big believer, Josh, that our identity can create enormously beneficial intellectual property in the world. So peeling back the mask to actually understand who you truly are is actually an important, productive process. We all wear masks throughout life, whether that is one of the lawyer, the student, the entrepreneur. But at the end of the day, who you truly are is actually the most productive search in life, because in witnessing entrepreneurs, business people of all shapes and sizes over a 20-year period, what I've recognized is those entrepreneurs who truly know who they are, who truly know what their identity is, have the ability then to bring that into the world, which creates one, important, purposeful intellectual property that can solve tomorrow's challenges today.
I have to comment. I don't normally comment on questions or answers, but that is such a moving thing to me because I know it's true. I spent most of my life, I had a mental health condition called dissociative identity disorder. It used to be called multiple personality disorder. And I healed. I mean, the last year I haven't disassociated at all. I haven't had a switch or anything. And that's really allowed me to really learn who I am. It's allowed me to take the healing journey I was already on for the 9 years previous, and really do the fine-tuning, sharpening work. And what I learned about myself in that, you talk about intellectual property, you talk about the life lessons that are gained and what I learned about myself, and even the things that I then developed the courage to do, to attempt, to try. It was, I never thought that journey would have that benefit. At first I just thought, well, I just want to have a normal, healthy relationship with somebody. I want to have a healthy relationship with myself. I want to be able to have a family. I want to be able to live a normal life because I'd never had that in my life. But I also didn't realize what I was really tapping into. And if I could tell anyone out there that's listening right now, if you haven't started your journey or you're in the middle of it, if there's any reason at all to put the pedal to the metal and just like, all right, I'm not going to run from this anymore, I'm going head first into it. Like, I'm going to face these giants head on. I'm going to conquer them. If there's any extra incentive, all I can tell you is it's worth it for more reasons than the obvious. It opens up a whole new world, and it opens up a world where you quit thinking or caring what other people think about you and start appreciating yourself for who you were created to be. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure, Josh. I deal with this journey in the Finding Freedom, the first book we mentioned. And as I said, it took me 15 years to publish, but that journey is a lifelong. And I really, the only comment I want to add to that is much of this is also about fear. Fear is the mask. Fear is the thing that sometimes people think keeps them safe. But in true essence, defeating and conquering that fear with the truth, like who you truly are, you can create magic, while walking towards that fear. And I believe people do that every day in all sorts of walks of life. It's the most important walk of your life. And even though I've been a lawyer, a storyteller, this more recent work, working with people's purpose, it's the most important path you will ever take, because on the other side of that mountain lies what you are truly capable of creating. And that is a path and a truth worth taking.
That's so good. You could just drop the mic and end the interview there. All right. Question 4. We have more questions though. Number 4. Yeah. Your passion for AI's potential is contagious. What excites you most about the AI-driven economy, and what are some common misconceptions you wish people would move past?
Yeah, well, again, touching on that touchstone of fear, right? We seem to have heard the predominant thoughts around the fear of AI, but as a lawyer, I'm trained to see risk and opportunity. And actually, I'm more of an opportunity guy. Like, I see the blue sky and the opportunity that AI presents. And in my book, Ideology 2.0, I really kind of suggest that it's the great opportunity of our lifetimes, because we can take the things we've discussed, the purpose, your identity, and it is the wind in your sails. If you learn the ropes of AI, directed by your strong sense of purpose, in which you are the compass, then AI can take you to new blue oceans of opportunity. And that's how I see it. Never a time in human history have we had access to so many tools. And this particular one, AI is one of the is being given to anyone with an internet connection. And I feel, intellectual property laws, for example, began with the advent of the printing press. And they were designed to give individuals a pecuniary right from the things that they create. Their words, their music, their ideas, their inventions. And essentially, I believe that in this age of AI, we are able to create and deliver those ideas at speed to the world. So, and you don't have to have had, a privileged education. You do not need to have been born into one of the, top, 200 GDP, first world countries in the world. All you need is your ideas and the mindset of a captain to really overcome the obstacles in order to create the things that you want, the business that you want, or the ideas that you want. So I'm certainly believe it. It is between a fifth industrial revolutions and a renaissance. Yeah. And I will just say that the printing press heralded an age of enlightenment because people could share ideas. And that's my hope for humanity. And I believe, we're yet to see that come, but we get to live through it and we get to be part of it. So, yeah, I'm all about embracing the opportunity, Josh.
Amen to that. Question 5. In Ideology 2.0, you highlight the challenges AI presents to intellectual property. What unique threats do creators face in this AI age, and how can they effectively protect their work?
Look, it's a good question, because I think we need to demystify this. First of all, with regard to intellectual property, human authorship is still key. It's paramount in the eyes of the law. So AI cannot own, own intellectual property. Thank goodness for that, because it would be a very different world in dystopian film yet to be written. However, the reality is human authorship is key, and the laws are preserving that to this point. And I think actually the laws that were created 400 years ago stand up because human authorship is still key. And even though you are using AI tools, it's important that you own the output of those ideas. And that's really very, very, very important. I'll just highlight a recent case, in the US courts, like Chris Castanova. She is a graphic book novelist from New York. And she actually, 2 years ago, created a comic book with the use of Mid-Journey and Stable Diffusion called Zara Dawn of the Dead. And she tried to register it with the US Copyright Office. They initially rejected, initially they protected her work, but there is still some confusion in the courts as to whether the Mid-Journey, the Stable Diffusion, the artwork can be created and protected, in the US. And that, I think, needs to change somewhat, because the end ruling was that she could, protect the script, but not the artwork. So there are still some challenges here, but essentially, as a creator, as an entrepreneur, as an artist, as a musician, you need to assert ownership. You need human authorship by asserting your copyright, registering that copyright in the US, for example. And I am a big believer of that. You need to own the output of your work, whether you're using a typewriter or you are using, a Mid-Journey, a Canva, or Arial typeface. You need to still own that typeface. You need to own the words, and that's a really important journey, which I illustrate in Ideology 2.0. Understanding the fundamentals is key. So yeah, I'm a big believer that is your road to empowerment. As an artist and author, you need to be proud of your work, and you need to ensure that you own the output of any tool that you use to create it.
Beautiful. Number 6, you've worked closely with First Nation students, teaching them about AI and technology. What insights did you gain from that experience, and how did it shape your views on tech education?
Listen, yeah, this actually occurred about 12 months ago, but I worked with the Northern Territory government here in Australia to work with First Nations students in Alice Springs. We built a studio, and most importantly, a purpose program, which was called Follow Your Story. And it actually was highly intuitive in how we brought the program together. It was a pilot program. We actually kept technology out of the classroom for the first 4 weeks. In fact, the classroom was not a classroom. The country was the classroom. In this beautiful spot, the Desert Knowledge precinct in the heart of Australia, Alice Springs. We threw open the doors with the beautiful McDonald Ranges, and actually our classes began on country. And on country is really what connects to the strong sense of identity of First Nation students. So we were using the country as an inspiration towards the stories that we were making and creating. And most importantly, the first couple of weeks was about identifying a strong sense of purpose. This is the world's oldest storytelling culture. Having just come back from Europe, Davos, and actually Rome, that's 7,000 years in Rome, BC approximately. Yes, approximately. But we're talking 60,000 years of cultural history here in Australia. And so, yeah, it was amazing to watch these young people, some of which hadn't even finished high school, pick up tools, both tactile to create art, but also then pick up digital tools. And when we had instilled a strong sense of purpose, we found they were able to overcome obstacles in just moving between mediums, whether that was making murals together as a group or individually, sketching, through to picking up, a state-of-the-art Adobe suite empowered with AI, and being able to then create film and television content, 3D content. We got them to imagine their totems as animated 3D animals, and they loved the 3D. And then we moved across to game and AR, and indeed in 12 weeks delivered an entire cultural tour built predominantly by the students in their First Nation languages. And that was all 12 weeks. And one of the most interesting things, Josh, was that we connected. It was a pathway program. The end result wasn't a certificate. It was actually a pathway to their next step, their next story. And 6 out of 12 of them got paid placements, which is just unheard of. Yeah, because, yeah. And some of them hadn't even finished, the high school. And the point is that people with purpose, whatever race, whichever place you come from, are empowered, and they can overcome obstacles and quite frankly, it was the employers that were impressed, because they could see those people, those young people, for the first time, and they rewarded them by saying, "We wish to work with you." It's the Follow Your Story program. We hope to reprise. We're actually looking at, establishing a relationship with MIT in the US to explore doing this cross-culturally again. That was one of the foundation outcomes that we're seeking from Davos. And so at the end of the day, we hope, if you are out there and interested in this particular program, we're interested in speaking, because if we've proved it with the oldest storytelling culture in the world, we believe we can work with any culture, any disadvantaged group. Please do seek me out, Gareth Benson, through LinkedIn, because this program, it's very close to my heart, but most importantly, it's proven that if we follow our story, we can overcome obstacles in our lives and be the true persons that we have always been destined to be. And is that not the purpose of education?
I believe it is. This is something that I know that we would be interested in with the Bridge Media Empowerment Centers, because this is a big piece of what we'll be doing. And so, I'll have that conversation with you for sure, but I know some people in the audience would as well, because this speaks to the heart of a lot of people I know. So getting to hear this from you all the way in Australia is really exciting, because you are painting a beautiful picture and an example, giving an example of a lot of the things that we've been talking about, whether it's in broadcast or presentations. So to hear you say it, and the audience to hear someone else saying it besides me, is really, really cool. I love it. It's so exciting to me, because I believe our stories, there's so many different things our stories can do. That can be our business model is our story, using media to get our stories out. That's one avenue. But the other thing about it is we can save some lives sharing stories. People break out of addiction, stop suicide. There's a lot of different things. I've said multiple times on this program and other shows I've done, there's someone literally out there, literally dying, waiting to hear your story, because your story can change someone's life just like that. It happened to me. I know, and I know it's happened to others. So this is super exciting to hear. I love it.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll continue that conversation.
Question 7. You've called intellectual property the oil of the 21st century. For someone with a brilliant idea, but no clue how to protect or market it, where should they start?
Oh, well, actually, I'm just going to correct you there. That was actually Mark Getty that said that, which is amazing, really, because he was the grandson of oil tycoons, right? Of billionaires. And he actually, this is really about a story of purpose. He was actually, like an artist of sorts. And he founded the idea of Getty Images, which is very much removed from his parents' story. but he saw the power and importance of intellectual property in Getty. And a very early made an exit in the digital economy. I think he sold it for $2 or $3 billion in 2008, but nowadays they're going for anyway. The point is he kind of saw that the market in digital imagery and he believed in the importance of poignant imagery and that is Getty Images still to this day. But the point I'm really making is that he made that comment, and I still believe it's true, because if you look 100 years ago, then the majority of a business is being valued on terms of the third agricultural revolution, or the industrial revolution, the very least, should I say, because it's being valued on plant and equipment, because they were the assets of a business, plant and equipment. But in the last 20 to 30 years, that the vast majority of business, say like a Google, yes, data centers around the world, but the majority of the value of these businesses are now in the digital cloud, and they are known as intangible assets, otherwise known as intellectual property. So that's why it is the oil, because our ideas are the oil of the 21st century. So we need to learn to protect them in order for them to trade them. And so it's vital, this education, and most importantly, it's about how we protect our most important asset, which are our ideas.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I love that. I think there's like an underlying metaphysical conversation happening here too as well. So talking about oil and ideas. Anyway, all right. Question 8. You've been involved in major IP deals with blockbuster movies and global brands. Can you share an impactful story from one of those deals and what key lesson it taught you?
Yeah, sure. Look, I could share. I worked for SBS Television, which is our multicultural broadcaster here in Australia. And just touching on the First Nation story, I worked on First Australians, which was a landmark documentary about, for the very first time, told the first Australian story here in Australia. And in a country that's still grappling with its identity, it was a really important, a very important series that was released on SBS and then around the world. But what I've also learned is the importance of, securing the rights. I mean, Australia is the size of Europe, and you've got just as many, if not more, cultures living within the First Nations. If you look at the traditional Australian map, each region, is a tribe of identity, which has a separate identity to everyone else. So then the actual undertaking or delivering that piece, the consent required and of gaining the appropriate consent rights, intellectual property rights from the different groups, was actually a huge undertaking. It took 7 years to make. But basically, at the end of the day, the importance of securing your rights in film is as important as any other business endeavor. It's called chain of title. And the producer, director, has to ensure that everybody that is on the boat, their rights are being assigned to the ship. And it's a really important lesson if you're making film or music or even in new digital content in the age of AI. You need to own the output, needs to be on the boat. The captain is the producer in this case, and needs to ensure that everyone that comes on the boat has a very informed, contract signed, essentially, of their rights and responsibilities coming on to work on the film and getting off as well. So, the importance of chain of title, I learned that through many projects, but also if you are a creator, if you are an entrepreneur, if you're a project manager of any description, you need to own the output. We know that in the physical world, but now that we live in an age of, a digital world, we need to even more be aware that we need to own the output of our ideas.
Well said. Number 9. In your book, you liken entrepreneurship to captaining a ship. When that ship hits an iceberg, How do you recommend entrepreneurs navigate failure and turn setbacks into growth?
Well, look, I think setbacks are important, absolutely important for growth. And one of the things that I just want to make a point of is that even a disaster, say like the Titanic, can be turned around. The interesting thing about the Titanic as a story is that, yeah, it was one of the greatest maritime disasters of its time. However, some very savvy entrepreneurs have managed to resurrect the Titanic and create new value. I mean, just look at James Cameron's film, Titanic, 100 years later. One of the biggest budgets, but also one of the biggest, highest grossing films of all time. And even the exhibition resurrected artifacts, repackaged them, shared the story back with the world. And my point really is that, failure is only fleeting.
Mm.
It's the courage to continue that counts, to take the great words of Winston Churchill. And we learn from those failures. I was over the weekend actually watching The Shackleton, the greatest documentary on Netflix. And this is a man who set out to find the South Pole, but failed because his ship got stuck in ice, and it actually turned into a story of survival. The point I'm making is sometimes we go out thinking we're going for gold or we're going to seek our South Pole, and we end up finding our true north by, finding that survival is more important. Not one person died on his expedition, and which is the remarkable story of survival, which is the gold in this situation. And I think in your personal situation, if you've had a business failure, if you've had a personal failure, it's the gold is what you learn along the way. And that, my friend, is priceless.
I agree. Awesome. Number 10. Storytelling is central to bringing ideas to life. Why do you believe storytelling is such a powerful tool, and how can people sharpen their narrative skills?
I believe storytelling is the invitation of in the universe, if you like, to be our true selves, or what we're truly seeking. And I think mastering your story means that you can be that captain of the ship. You are directing your own story. It's the most important first story that you learn to tell, is the one about yourself.
Mm.
And I feel that, yeah, it's in our genealogy, and it's in almost every aspect of our digital lives as well. So following our story is a really important message in life, because when we follow that uh, to a place of truth and authenticity, it sets us free. So yeah, I think I've been fascinated with stories since I was 8 years old, growing up in country Victoria. I was a shadow role player for a long while there, and what I actually learned in retrospect is that allowed me to tell stories to my brothers in the country Victoria where I grew up. And then that is an important power that I was learning even when I was 8 years old. So I feel sometimes that we need to return to those times to actually rediscover who we are. And that is how we can follow our story back to our true north.
Well said. Number 11. You released an AR comic book exploring World War II history. So cool. What sparked that project, and what impact do you hope it has on readers? Well, yeah, is it readers or viewers or experience or people that are experiencing it? Like, what is the actual proper
Yeah, the audience
reading
and probably
it?
both, of a comic is you experience it all, right? And I guess that's what a comic is, right? Even as a kid, we experience a comic for the first, and we never lose that spark, by the way. Whenever I mention the comic, people they go back to this, it's almost this unthreatening time in their lives, because that's where comics, often perhaps people's reading journeys began. I know when I lived in Germany when I was 19, I began again to learn another language by reading comics. In any case, one of the reasons for making the comics is actually from the purpose of education. Our identity in Australia has been challenged in more recent years. I mean, many people see us from down under. We're a relatively young country. Maybe that's why we appear so free. But the reality is that we also don't have a lot of stories except for our Anzac stories, which are important to share with the world, because we all share these stories within each one of our countries. It actually united us as well as a country, and connected us with the rest of the world. So, plus being here in Darwin, is we have this remarkable World War II history here that not many people know about. In fact, more bombs were dropped in Darwin during World War II only a month or two after Pearl Harbor by the same fleet of planes. Not many people know that. The town was leveled with more bombs dropped on it than Pearl Harbor, and the same within a month or 2 months of that occurring. So we wanted to ensure that we brought this story back to the world, and we created also one of the things that we don't have, that America or the US and many other countries, we don't have an Australian-born superhero. So we invented one, and he's an Anzac superhero, a World War II superhero, which is really designed to educate people, kids, school students, and the rest of the world. And his name's Adfaman. And so we created this World War II superhero comic in order to actually share our unique World War II history and bring attention to this for the purpose of peace, but also to, most importantly, tell some of our important World War II history. We brought it to life with new technology. It's an example of how we can use AI, or in this case, AR. In fact, we've used both in this last year. We've even created an experience where school kids can actually interact with our Anzac World War II and ask questions using AI and large language models, which we've trained on the history of the bombing of Darwin. And so, basically, we brought the comics to life with AR, and so far so good. We released it at Singapore Comic-Con, and we were back again last year with the second edition comic. We now have a relationship with Singapore, and in their 60th anniversary of independence, which flowed on from World War II, we've now got a relationship between two museums. And watch this space, we've even got the prospect of delivering a unique museum experience between these two countries. And that is all kind of being born from these ideas, the importance of sharing our identity, and essentially that's what storytelling does. So in essence, we believe we're just telling the story of our World War II identity. We're using modern day tools to bring these stories to life.
Well, you answered question 12 already.
Oh, did I?
So,
yeah.
Well, it's not. It wasn't. The question's a little bit different, but you still answered it anyway. So I'm going to spare you, because that was awesome. That was so cool. I could probably have 30 more questions just off that answer. But question 13. You've been part of global projects from Davos to Singapore Comic-Con. How have these experiences influenced your worldview and your thoughts on AI's role in society?
Yeah, kind of reinstilled what we've already discussed, is that AI is a tool, and AI is, the wind in your sails. We need to learn the ropes, but not be controlled by it, not be harnessed by it, not be entangled by it. And so I think going to Davos, or even to other jurisdictions, a place like Singapore, it's always with a curious mind to see what other people are presenting or what people are talking about. And I think, to be quite honest, people are still grappling with it. And what we need to be doing is implementing it. And that is happening. It's happening slowly and surely. But I think we're going to see an acceleration of that in the next couple of years. We just all, DeepSeek, comes out of the, out of left wing, stayed right, and all of a sudden that's been built by a far smaller resources and team than ChatGPT. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And you know what? That is our new reality. And so, like, buckle up for the ride. But I think essentially, like the entrepreneur and we go, the disruptor goes, well, we've opened the genie and this is what we're going to get. But that's the great reset and opportunity, to be at the frontier and to go and create. And that's happened in so many frontiers, where you talk about the US or the great sailing traditions of multiple countries across the world. The entrepreneurs, the people that were dared to, go to the frontier, sometimes much more dangerous places, by the way.
Yeah.
Just anyway, there's another conversation there, but I think the opportunities outweigh the risks.
Yes.
The wild frontiers are not what they used to be, and so we're going to see a lot more. And I think we're really into that phase of we're understanding that it's big. Implementation is the next stage, and that's what I'm seeing across Singapore to Europe, is that people are beginning to, and there's some incredible stories out there. I mean, I met a guy who was a lawyer, actually, fellow lawyer, who developed a large language model around case law, being able to, as a research tool for lawyers. He sold it to Thomson Reuters for $28 million. Right when ChatGPT. So, credit to him. He'd been working on it for 10 years. And Pablo, if he's listening, I'll send this to him to celebrate his story, because we were going to do an interview. And basically, at the end of the day, he's created enormous value out of, the AI tools. And then he's, been able to assign the output, to own the output, to sell the output. And that's the idea. That's not new. These are the principles of trade. And it just so happens that you've got in an age of AI, you're going to be building intellectual property, most likely. And so at the end of the day, I think, the conversations are turning from understanding to application. And that's where we're at here in 2025.
Perfect. Number 14. You've emphasized the importance of digital literacy in the AI era. What does digital literacy mean to you, and how can we ensure access to these critical skills for all communities?
Yeah, well, digital literacy is really the literacy of the 21st century. We need to be able to walk between all worlds. And, I know even back in 2010, when I launched my first sort of online business, digital still wasn't being seen as, seen as the outside. It's now, undeniable, that digital is the currency of the 21st century. So we need to understand that, and we need to be taught it, traveling just recently through Europe, Germany, where I have a relationship going back 30 years. I noticed they weren't teaching a hell of a lot of tech. They weren't engaged in a lot of it. The school kids, from my dear host families and friends, and so, because it's more of a traditional schooling system. And I think digital literacy is as important as, the teaching of purpose, which I believe it should be the centerpiece of education.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I believe digital literacy is kind of, whether we saw it from First Nations or from Europe or Singapore, it's about understanding your strong sense of purpose and then using the digital tools available, which is going to change and change and change. So actually, our propensity and importance of being able to learn, continuous learning, lifelong learning, is more important than ever, because we need to be as fluent as we are in the English language or another, a land's language, as we are digitally literate. And that is an imperative, for the rest of this century and ongoing. So yeah, I believe it should be a centerpiece, but that centerpiece should be directed by you and who you truly are. So
Digital literacy, media literacy, they're very, very similar to me. I've created my own definition for media literacy, which is a lot like digital literacy, but the focus is more on the media tools, not just deciphering between real and fake news, but the literacy in that component, because those are the different vehicles or the different paths that you can take your story on for monetization, for influence, for building community, and so on. But I really, really love that answer, because it to me, it's an equalizer. Yes, people that have a bunch of money, they can run ads and do things like that, and yes, that gives them an advantage. However, you're not out of the game. Like, you can get in the game with no money. I did it. I mean, my first book was a bestseller. We did it with no money. Film festivals. We didn't use any money for that film. We didn't have any money, but we won 8 of them. It can be done. It can be done. It just, if you have a vision, you want to, and you create something and you put it out on the marketplace for the world to see, you never know. You never know. But at the same time, you have the joy of getting to create something that's yours. You get to create something in your image. And that is one of the more gratifying things in my life that I've ever been able to experience, is creating something that felt good to me to create. It wasn't so much about, yes, I wanted to have impact and influence, and yes, I wanted to leave my mark on the world, and yes, I have certain goals, but really, the real joy was creating something of my own. Not something that, it's great to be hired, like, hey, can you do this voiceover? Or, hey, can you come speak at this event? Or, hey, can you do this? Those are all great things, but getting to create something for yourself and then distribute it for the world to see, it's a really, really cool feeling. So I love
100%. Yeah, 100%.
All right, number 15, and then we're going to get to some really fun stuff. You've advocated for education that prioritizes problem solving over rote learning. How do you envision transforming education systems to better prepare students for future challenges?
I think we've touched on this, with the description of the Follow Your Story education program. In fact, I believe purpose is paramount. Purpose should be the bedrock of our future education system, because it, as we demonstrated with the world's oldest storytelling culture, navigating new pathways with the newest technology, we basically prove that purpose can overcome obstacles, and we describe it as the gift that is born within the superhero of us all. If we can find our gift, hey, we all have weaknesses, but if we are able to champion that gift, if we were able to, just imagine if we in our education system had just 1 hour a week working on our purpose, imagine where we would be, by the end of our high school years.
Oh my God.
Imagine how more informed we would be on what course to take at university or not to take at university. So I believe, that 1 hour a week, is so important. And that's why we built the Pathway program, because we didn't want to usurp the education, which is destined for transformation, but we basically build a bridge between two worlds. And so that's how we're solving it,
I'm sorry to laugh, but I didn't mean to cut you off either, but that's literally the reason why we named it the Bridge to Media Empowerment Centers, is for this reason. It was, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bridge references, and there's 5 or 7 different meanings to the title, but that is one of them, yes. And that part of letting people tap into their gifts, talents, and intellectual property to create revenue streams for themselves. And if you're a kid and you can run a TikTok account, you can run a media company in 2025.
Sure.
Like, if you have that same skill set, because to publish a book is the same thing as publishing a YouTube video, the same thing it is if you're on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, any of those streaming networks, same process. If you want to create your own t-shirts or hats, same process. Book, it's all the same. Looks a little different, but the uploading process, the imaging, the hashtags, the keywords, the descriptions, the titles, it's all the same stuff. And it's easier than ever to be able to do all of it. Like my
Yeah.
omni-media platform has like, I think 70 revenue streams, like a ridiculous amount of revenue streams on it. And like, but I did it all myself. Because the minute I figured out that it was all the same process, I'm like, well, gosh, I could just do anything I want now. And then going into virtual reality and those programs, it's not much different.
Mhm.
Like so many opportunities for everyone, disabled. It doesn't, if you're in a wheelchair and you're quadriplegic, you may not be able to do certain things that I can do necessarily. However, because of the media tools available and the accessibility to them, and the fact that they're either inexpensive or free, we all have an opportunity now to be heard, to leave a mark, to leave a legacy, to create revenue streams for ourselves. Heck, I know people on disability, and like people on disability in America, I don't know what it's like in other places if they even have disability, but you don't really get taken care of. Like, I mean, you have this situation where you get so much a month, but if you were to go out and try to earn money, if you earn a certain amount, which is just over what you get a month, they can take away your benefits. So but then what happens the next month? You don't make money, right? Especially if you're disabled. And so this is an opportunity for those that want to break themselves out of the system, like, because it's like a prison, being on welfare, being on food stamps. It's a prison. So if you don't hit a home run, you never really get out of it, or you have to cheat or game the system. And I'm not, who wants to do that? So this media literacy, digital literacy is an avenue. It's a pathway to freedom for people, literally tapping into your God-given gifts, talents, and your life experience. Like that's
100%.
what you're so excited about.
Yeah, that's the opportunity. But we need to reform in many sectors. But, I think that's going to be a product of this fifth industrial revolution. We're going to see a change. So, but power to the people and those that are able to embrace their gifts and the tools that are made available.
Now's the time. All right, question 16.
Yes.
Looking back over your career, and by the way, very impressive career. For me, like looking at what you've done, very inspiring, very, very inspiring, because you're in a lot of areas that I've worked in a little, somewhat more so than others. But I mean, again, I know it. I've been around the industry. Again, I'm in media, so I've been on film sets and been in movies and been in TV shows and commercials. And I mean, I know that world. But really, even being an author and your humanitarian work and working at, going to Davos and working with the World Economic Forum, like all those things to me, very, very inspiring. So like, I look at that and go, yeah, this is amazing. Okay. But what accomplishment are you most proud of?
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because, they all come in chapters. But I'd have to probably say when I realized, and I like even the accomplishments are important, don't get me wrong. But I kind of also am in that age where I kind of look and go, do you really, like you look at what's on the news and people caught up in the news and you go like, is it really that important to be so visible? There's a huge luxury to being invisible. There's a huge luxury to being in down under where we're not in the spotlight of the world. And I'm finding my gold was really pivotal in that, is that we grow up seeking outwards affirmation from the world for what we're to do or what we're still going to do, Josh. And the point is that when you get to the point of, the destination, you realize the goal is yourself, and it's been the entire journey all along, and that's what makes it worthwhile. So, I would say that's the greatest accomplishment, to find out who you are. Mark Twain, a great adventurer and author, famously once said, there's two most important days in your life, the day you're born and the day you find your why. And I'm going to choose that one because that one, it leads to abundant riches. And that is an abundant accomplishments. And they're the thing, that are worthwhile, right?
It's such a great, I say it's such a great answer because that would have been my answer. But I mean, any answer is great because it's for yourself. But
Yeah.
That would have been my answer because I 100% agree with that.
Yeah,
Amazing.
sure.
Question 17.
Yeah.
What's the biggest risk you've ever taken, and what did it teach you about yourself?
Yeah, I would say the biggest risk was my biggest failure. I mean, I tried to start a business in Dubai, my first business actually. And that was definitely a huge risk. I mean, but you know what? I'm so glad I did it. It didn't kind of pay off the first time, but I needed to do it. And
Mm,
essentially, like trying to start a business is one thing, but trying it in a foreign country, like, hey, but many other migrants before us have tried it as well. And the thing is, what I learned in that year, again, have stayed with me for life. Because once going back to fear, and sometimes your path in life will destroy you for a
mm,
time. But the point is that then when you get back on the horse, so to speak, when I re-established that building in Melbourne, which I'd almost defeated fear because I'd already lost everything.
yeah.
And so when when you lose everything and then come back to something, you can defeat the optical illusion of fear because you've already lost. And so that was the best risk I'd ever taken. Did I fall on my face? Hell yeah. Did I lose $28,000? Yes. Did you learn the true value of money and perseverance and the gold within that? Absolutely, I did. So that what it means is like I don't let many things phase me nowadays because I've already been there and lost that. So that's been an important risk and reward, and the reward was being able to defeat the optical illusion of fear.
Love that so much. Oh my gosh. Number 18. If I laugh at this question because every time it's asked to me, it makes me laugh when sorry. All right. If you could give yourself I'm sorry. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
I would probably. I know that's follow your story because I've had to reassemble that one, and it's what I say to people nowadays. I'm so glad I kind of did, but I had to overcome a lot of barriers but it's what I was doing when I was 8 years old, and they were at times of abundant imagination. And it's what I believe today. Just follow your story and have the courage to continue to follow your story as life grows on.
Very good. 19. Who have you been the most in who have been the most influential figures in your life, career, and why?
Oh, influential figures. Okay. There's probably so many, and I think we have local, people within our community. We have, aspirational filmmakers like we may follow or people's lives. I mean, and I find people's lives are hugely interesting. But to choose one who was someone that's been incredibly inspiring. I'm going to choose Melanie Perkins and Cliff Albrecht, who actually are a couple from Australia who had the courage to follow their story into an incredible application, which many people now know as Canva. But their story is quite amazing because they did it right from sleepy old Australia and took on Adobe and the suite of creative products by building Canva, which is a design tool for those who haven't used it. But it's in like 6 countries worldwide. It's an incredibly intuitive piece for accessing your creativity. But essentially, I love their story because one, they supported each other the whole way since university. To actually just sort out this whole problem with digital tools. But Melanie Perkins is a graphic designer, and what she actually did was gave the gift of design to everyone by building this tool. And they did it, of course, not overnight, but they went on that road less traveled. And, you know, they're some of the richest people in Australia now, but they don't define themselves as billionaires. They define themselves as on purpose. And I think that's a hugely inspiring story. And Melanie Perkins is famous for saying, all you need is, you know, to solve that big problem in the world, and to know, just to try and understand what the next step is. That's all you need, you know, and that is enough. And I think that's just a beautiful summary of her quote, which is, doesn't matter where you're at, doesn't matter how far or low on the mountain you perceive yourself to be, is you just got to know what the next step is and make sure that it is your mountain that you're climbing. So yeah, that's been greatly inspiring for me.
That's really good. Number 20, what are your hopes and visions for the future, both personally and for society as a whole?
Yeah, well, look, I hope that in all this massive confusion, divided place of the world we call home, that we can find a strong sense of self, and within that we can, you know, create a stronger collective consciousness. It comes from self, but then that amplifies, and it certainly has in other times in humanity. My hopes is that AI will lead to a time of empowerment and, you know, a renaissance, a time of another period of enlightenment. That's my hope. I mean, we might see a lot of divide before we get to that point, but that's what I truly believe, that all the other things we've discussed today is important, right? Yeah, so that's my hope for humanity.
Okay. Last question. What's one question you've always wished someone would ask you in an interview, but never have?
Oh gosh. I mean, your research has been exemplary, Josh, but so you've asked a lot of the key points I would probably wish to cover. And you know, essentially it's all about who are you, isn't it? It's the big question in life. Yeah, I probably would have asked, I'd love for someone to ask me, which you have, you know, what my story is, you know, and the importance of your story when you're 8 years old. Because, and I'll tell you why. Not that I've expected anyone to ask that, but I believe our identity is fully formed by the time we're 8 years old. And we are the same persons that we are when we are 8 to when we're 80. Our sense of our identity is actually fairly fully formed. The thing that happens is that life then intervenes, and we get thrown off that path. So I think a good question to ask anyone is like, what did you used to do when you were 8 years old? You know, and how, and what were you doing that made you feel most free? Because I believe the answer to that is what we all should still be doing. And so, yeah, there's just a tip for anyone who ever asks me another. But I believe it's a question we should all ask ourselves, and that's why I pose it in that way. You know, like, because that's how we truly find freedom. If we can return to that state, that childlike state, when we're 7 years old, and return to that place doing the things that we love doing, then that place is timeless. And I believe that is the easiest way to return to that and find freedom in our lives.
Well, I didn't even get to ask you the question because you answered it, but that's okay. that was actually the 21st question. Is I was going to ask you that question, but and you answered it perfectly. Wow. I am so happy that you said yes, because you could have easily blown me off because you didn't know who the heck I was. But I am so honored that you said yes. I had the best time. This was far exceeded my expectations, and I had high expectations. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. What I would like for you to do, I'm going to give you the final word. The final word is yours. Plug, even though it's going to be in the show notes and all that other stuff, everyone's going to be able to access you, your books and everything. But I would like for you to plug whatever you feel led to plug, which is promote. And then also, just if you have anything that's on your heart to share that you haven't, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, just thanks for inviting me along. Unmasking Identity is a favorite topic of mine. And it took me 15 years to bring out the book Finding Freedom, which is about the process of, I think, of how we rescue ourselves. Some of the final word is really that if people would like to go on that journey or share a story from that journey of finding freedom, I'd encourage them to look up my book on Amazon. And also there's some tools and in there about actually masks and how to unmask your own ego. But most importantly, I think, is that if we have the courage to follow our story in life, we will find our identity or stay true to our identity. And my only real point is I look at some amazing people out in the world that probably started their journey, earlier. I look at like someone like Taylor Swift, right? And I go like, here's someone whose parents supported her, but she has gone on her own journey, very aware of who she is. And, she is a deeply courageous creative. And I feel that, people can be the people they wish to be in the world if they truly, spend the time to work out who they are. And I think that's the journey. If you follow your story all the way through, then you will naturally bring great ideas, great stories, great intellectual property into the world, and the world needs you. So, at the end of the day, my hope for all of you is that you will have the courage to do so. So thanks so much, Josh, for having me on. It's been a great preparation, and I just want to say thank you for bringing your gifts into the world.
I seen 2093 and fucking came back, every time. I'm trying to tell you something, but you won't listen to mine.
The ground is shifting beneath us. The fourth industrial revolution isn't just coming, it's here.
I love it. I love when they hate on. I love it. I love it. I know you, man. I know you love it.